Secrets never stay buried for long, and in this episode, every conversation feels like it's carrying a hidden blade. Reasonable Doubt Season 3 Episode 3 doesn't just show us the courtroom battles, it digs deeper into the lies, the tension, and the kind of truths that people are too afraid to admit. If you thought trust was fragile before, this episode proves that trust isn't just fragile, it's dangerous. Episode 3 picks up with the same energy that Season 3 has been building since its start. The courtroom drama takes center stage again, but what makes this episode stand out is how personal the case becomes. The lines between Jax Stewart's professional responsibilities and her personal life blur in ways that are hard to ignore. We see her struggling to keep her focus sharp while the weight of everything around her keeps pulling her attention away. The writers do something really smart here. Instead of making this just another legal showdown, they make the courtroom feel like a mirror. Every argument, every objection, every pause in testimony feels like a reflection of Jax's own battles outside those four walls. The case itself unfolds with unexpected twists. What seems straightforward at first suddenly takes a turn, and the witnesses don't always say what we think they're going to say. That unpredictability is what gives this episode its sharp edge. You're constantly waiting for the next revelation, the next detail that changes everything. And when those moments arrive, they don't feel forced, they feel like the kind of secrets that were always there, waiting for the right push to come spilling out. But it's not just the case that demands attention. Jax's personal relationships become just as important, maybe even more so. There are quiet moments where her confidence slips, where we see the pressure breaking through her calm exterior. Those cracks are what make this episode powerful, because they remind us that no matter how strong she appears, she's still human. She's still dealing with betrayal, loss, and the question of who she can rely on. Watching her balance all of this is like watching someone walk a tightrope without a safety net. One wrong step, and it could all fall apart. The pacing of Episode 3 is another highlight. It never drags, but it also never feels rushed. The scenes build on each other, giving us time to sit with the emotions before pulling us into the next dramatic moment. The tension rises naturally, scene after scene, like a slow drumbeat that you can feel in your chest. By the time the episode reaches its peak, you're not just watching, you're invested. You want answers just as much as the characters do. And that's what makes this hour so gripping. More than anything, Episode 3 is about exposure. Characters are forced to show sides of themselves they'd rather keep hidden, and the courtroom becomes the stage for that exposure. It's not about who can tell the best story, but about who can hide their weaknesses the longest. And in this battle, Jax is right at the center, trying to prove that she can hold everything together even as the walls start to close in around her. This is the kind of writing that makes Reasonable Doubt so addictive. It's not just about the verdicts, it's about the people behind them, the flaws they carry, and the choices they can't undo. One of the strongest parts of Episode 3 is how much weight it gives to the characters themselves. The story isn't only about the case, it's about the people who are trapped inside of it. Every character has a moment where their mask slips, and what lies underneath tells us more than any dramatic speech ever could. The brilliance of this episode lies in how it weaves those small, human moments into the larger chaos of the courtroom and personal drama. At the center, of course, is Jax Stewart. This episode shows us sides of her that feel raw and unguarded. In the courtroom, she's sharp, confident, and relentless, as always. She knows how to push when someone is hiding something, and she knows how to pause at just the right moment to let her words sink in. But outside of those walls, her confidence doesn't look so steady. There are moments where you can see the exhaustion on her face, where her voice doesn't carry the same strength, and it's clear she's fighting battles no one else can see. What makes Jax's character so compelling in this episode is that she's not portrayed as untouchable. She's shown as layered, complicated, and maybe even a little scared. That contrast between her public image and private struggle gives her dimension. And it makes every choice she makes feel heavier. Then there are the supporting players who step into the spotlight in unexpected ways. We get a deeper look into how certain allies are not as dependable as they once seemed. One friend's loyalty comes into question, not in loud, dramatic betrayals, but in subtle moments where silence says more than words ever could. These quiet betrayals cut deeper than the obvious ones because they remind us that trust can crumble in silence just as much as it can in shouting matches. On the other side, there are also characters who surprise us with unexpected strength. People who seemed weak in earlier episodes now stand their ground, making bold moves that shift the balance of power. These reversals give the episode texture, reminding us that in reasonable doubt, no character is fixed in place. Everyone is capable of change for better or worse. One standout sequence is when a key witness delivers testimony that seems ordinary at first, but then cracks under pressure. The way Jax handles this moment reveals not just her skills as a lawyer, but her instincts as someone who understands human behavior. She doesn't pounce right away. She waits, she observes, and then she pushes in a way that forces the truth out. Watching her navigate this exchange feels like watching a chess master set up a checkmate. But even as she wins this round, the scene leaves us wondering how much of herself she has to sacrifice to keep winning. Does her brilliance in court come at the cost of her peace outside of it? The episode doesn't answer that question directly, but it plants the seed in our minds. Another emotional highlight comes from how relationships outside of the courtroom shape the drama inside of it. Jax's family, her friendships, and even her rivals bleed into her decisions in ways that are hard to separate. You can see the tension in her eyes when personal stakes creep into professional territory. That struggle feels painfully real because anyone who has ever tried to balance their personal life with their work knows how hard it is when the two start colliding. For Jax, the collision is explosive, and it makes her choices more unpredictable, which keeps the audience glued to the screen. By the end of the episode, what stands out most is not the verdict or the legal strategies, but the way these characters reveal themselves under pressure. The courtroom scenes may be the stage, but the true drama happens in the quiet looks, the half-finished sentences, the hesitations before a confession, and the trembling hands under the table. Episode 3 reminds us that in this world, every character carries secrets, and every secret has the power to change everything. These character moments are what give the story its soul. Without them, it would just be another legal drama. With them, it becomes a mirror for the human condition, messy, flawed, but endlessly fascinating. If the first 2 episodes of this season set the stage for the drama, Episode 3 makes it clear what kind of story Reasonable Doubt is really telling. Beyond the legal battles and the heated arguments, this episode works like a mirror, reflecting the deeper themes that shape every character's decision. The writers know that the audience isn't just here for courtroom victories, we're here for the questions that linger after the credits roll. And in this episode, the biggest question is simple but haunting. What is the price of truth? The most obvious theme in Episode 3 is the tension between morality and justice. These two ideas should be the same, but in this story, they rarely line up. Justice, in the legal sense, is about winning cases, proving arguments, and delivering verdicts that hold up in court. But morality is messier. It's about right and wrong, about human responsibility, and about the choices people make when no one is watching. Jax is caught between these two forces at every step. In the courtroom, her job is to fight for her client, no matter how ugly the truth might be. But in her personal life, morality is harder to ignore. She has to decide if protecting the people she loves means bending the rules, or if standing firm will cost her everything. Watching her move between these two worlds makes the audience feel the weight of that theme. Because we all know what it's like to want what's right, but also want what's safe. Another theme running through the episode is loyalty versus betrayal. Loyalty is painted here as both a shield and a weapon. When someone is loyal to you, it gives you strength, but when that loyalty falters, it can destroy you from the inside out. Episode 3 doesn't give us simple answers about who is trustworthy and who isn't. Instead, it plants seeds of doubt everywhere. A friend who seems supportive may be hiding another agenda. An enemy may surprise you by standing beside you at the moment you least expect it. This unpredictability makes betrayal hit harder because it reminds us that betrayal always comes from the people closest to us. Strangers can't hurt us the same way friends can. And that reality adds a layer of suspense to every interaction. There's also a clear symbolic thread about exposure and concealment. Throughout the episode, truth is treated like something dangerous that everyone is trying to hide. In the courtroom, the truth is always in question, shaped by witnesses, twisted by lawyers, doubted by the jury. Outside the courtroom, the same thing happens. Characters hide their fears, their guilt, their mistakes. The symbolism here is sharp. The courtroom lights expose lies, but in the shadows of private life, people can hide anything they want. One particularly powerful image is when a witness breaks under questioning. It's not just about what they say, it's about how their body language shifts, how their silence becomes louder than their words. That silence is a symbol of how hard it is to keep secrets buried and how exposure can come at the most unexpected moment. Family also plays a symbolic role in this episode. Jax's connection to her family and the way her choices ripple into those relationships gives us another layer of meaning. Family is shown not as a safe haven, but as another battlefield. Every interaction with loved ones feels loaded, as if one wrong word could shatter everything. Symbolically, family becomes a reminder of why Jax fights so hard, but also a reminder of what she stands to lose. It's the anchor that keeps her steady, but it's also the chain that could drag her under. This duality makes every family moment in the episode more intense, because the audience can feel how fragile those bonds really are. Finally, episode 3 carries a subtle but powerful theme about identity. Each character is wrestling with who they are versus who they appear to be. In the courtroom, people play roles: lawyer, defendant, witness, judge. But outside, those roles collapse, and the question of identity becomes more complicated. Jax, more than anyone, struggles with this. Is she the strong, fearless lawyer who can outsmart anyone? Or is she the woman who lies awake at night, second-guessing her every move? The way the episode dances around this question gives us a deeper sense of her humanity. And in a broader sense, it forces the audience to look at themselves too. How often do we hide behind roles? And how often do we let our real selves show? By the end of episode 3, the themes and symbols aren't just background details, they're the heartbeat of the story. They remind us that this show isn't about easy victories or clear answers. It's about doubt, choice, and the blurry line between truth and survival. And that's why it resonates so strongly, because in our own lives, we all face those same questions. Even if we aren't standing in front of a judge, every episode of Reasonable Doubt leaves behind echoes, moments that stick with you long after the screen fades to black. Episode 3 is no exception. What makes this episode stand out are its high points, those sharp bursts of drama that remind us why we tune in every week. At the same time, it's not a flawless chapter. There are depths and weaker edges that slow the rhythm for a moment before the story picks itself up again. Together, these highs and lows give the episode balance, keeping it grounded while also pushing it toward its bigger questions. The first major high is the tension in the courtroom scenes. There's something electric about the way the dialogue unfolds, like every word is a step in a dangerous dance. When Jax cross-examines a key witness, you can feel the pressure building. She doesn't raise her voice or throw dramatic accusations. Right away, she lets silence do the work, waiting until the other person cracks under the weight of their own words. That kind of writing and performance doesn't just entertain, it pulls the viewer into the game. It makes you lean forward, waiting for the exact second when the mask slips and the truth bursts out. This is the show at its very best. Sharp, suspenseful, and painfully human. Another high comes from the way the episode explores trust. Characters who seemed steady in earlier episodes start to look less reliable here. You catch those subtle hesitations, the glances that linger too long, the words that feel carefully chosen instead of honest. The writing doesn't shout these moments at us, it whispers them. That's what makes them so effective. You begin to wonder, is everyone hiding something? Who will betray Jax first? Who has already betrayed her without her knowing? That constant questioning creates a cloud of suspense that hangs over every scene. It's one of the strongest points of the episode because it transforms the viewer into an investigator, piecing together clues and suspicions in real time. Of course, not everything lands perfectly. One of the lows of episode 3 is pacing in certain sections outside the courtroom. While the personal moments with Jax are deeply important, a few side conversations drag longer than they should. Instead of adding tension, they stall it. You can feel the energy dip when the dialogue circles the same emotional ground without giving us new revelations. It doesn't ruin the episode, but it does create a few moments where you're itching for the story to push forward. In a season that's otherwise been razor sharp, these slow burns feel slightly out of place. Another weaker point is how certain secondary characters are handled. Some are given powerful development, while others remain stuck on the sidelines. Episode 3 raises questions about loyalty and betrayal, but a few characters who could have added more complexity are left quiet, almost as if the writers are saving them for later. It's a small flaw, but it stands out because this show has built a reputation for giving depth even to the smallest roles. When some characters fade into the background, it feels like wasted potential. But if the lows remind us that the show still has room to grow, the theories that episode 3 sparks remind us why it's so addictive. One of the biggest theories centers on who Jax can actually trust. Every scene seems to plant seeds of suspicion. Could one of her closest allies be feeding information to her enemies? The way certain characters avoid direct answers suggests that betrayal is already in motion. Another theory is that the case itself is bigger than it appears. The sudden twists in testimony hint that the legal battle may not just be about the surface crime, it could be connected to something deeper. Something that pulls more characters into the web. Fans will also no doubt wonder how Jax's personal life is going to collapse into her professional one. The episode makes it clear that her family and her work are no longer separate. Every move she makes in court seems to echo back into her home, creating cracks in relationships that once looked unbreakable. One theory is that those cracks will widen into full betrayals later in the season. The question isn't just whether Jax can win her case, it's whether she can keep her world from shattering completely. And then there's the lingering theme of exposure. Episode 3 shows us that lies can't stay hidden forever. Every character has something to lose if the truth comes out. And the theory that hangs over the episode is simple but chilling. The next big reveal won't just shake the case. It will shake lives. It feels inevitable that the betrayal hinted at here will explode later in the season. And when it does, it may destroy bonds that seemed unbreakable. In the end, the highs of episode 3 far outweigh its lows. The powerful courtroom drama, the layered character dynamics, and the suspenseful undertones make it a gripping hour of television. The flawed, slower scenes and sidelined characters aren't noticeable, but they don't take away from the tension the episode builds. More importantly, the theories it sparks keep the conversation alive long after the credits. That's the mark of a strong story. It doesn't end when the episode ends. It keeps you thinking, questioning, and doubting, just like the title promises.